Hey, it's Florida man.
Evening, Steve. Did you grab the host?
I'm doing it right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Be right there.
Yeah, we'll make
Recording in progress.
Evening, Frank.
Hey, Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
I left the paper trays up just for you.
The paper trays, yeah.
I left them up for you. I don't
You
use
still
them.
you don't
I don't-
use them anymore. The office looks good.
Looks like all the papers in my office, Frank. I love it.
And I'm aware of 3 people not coming, so give it a couple minutes. Bill Boudry won't be here, Stephen.
Yeah,
Teray won't be here, and David won't be here.
Hey, I should ask before we start, am I super high pitched again or no?
You're in good shape
Yeah,
right
sounds-
now.
Yeah, it sounds great.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yelling.
well, I guess that tells us that Mr. Cusack is here, huh?
Indeed. It was a very nice thing that you all did, Steve, saying thank you to the folks who volunteer their
Yeah.
time for the town.
Yeah, it's a nice little event. You know, we do it every year.
Yeah, you get there, Brian? I've never made it. Yep.
I did. I got there a little tardy. And Steve still came through with
Oh,
tchotchke.
I tell you.
So I'm now the proud owner of a Wakefield pin that I'll wear on my jacket if I ever wear a jacket again.
There you go. Nice.
And a credit card holder for my phone, which Steve has on the back of his phone right now.
I do.
You didn't get the town credit card.
There's no town credit card.
It's not in there.
I think it's buried in the school department budget somewhere, Doug. On page 46.
There you go. All righty, let's see. Who am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Myself is 8. I think.
Do I have an 8? Oh, there's Amy. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I do have 8, so you do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hopefully everybody was able to access information on the link. We'll get started. Good evening. 30th of March. Spring is here, and the Sox did not disappoint. Delivered as expected.
That's right. Well, they were supposed to have good pitching this year, and they lost 10-9. So
Yeah.
go figure.
Oh, it got back to 9. I heard it was 10 to
Yeah.
4 at some point.
Yeah.
It was in the 7th inning.
Okay, good. Well, made an effort. All right. Not too big of an agenda tonight. That's kind of a good thing. I'll open it up first for any public participation. Excuse me, anybody on? Seeing none. Very good. First order of business is the overall finance committee meeting minutes from March 16th. Should have it before you. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval. This is Dan.
Thank you, Dan. There's a second.
Second,
Thank you, Ellie. That was Ellie. Yep.
yes.
Very good. Any discussion on the March 16th meeting minutes, 2023? Anybody? Steve, I read them over. Thank you, obviously, always for doing those.
You're welcome.
Any final thoughts? All right, all those in favor of approving the March 16th, 2023 meeting minutes for the full finance committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Second item for meeting minutes, just dropped in there today, was the Finance Committee Health Insurance Subcommittee meeting minutes of 3/23. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Approval, Dan, seconded by.
Second,
Thank you, Don. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor of the minutes that were part of that subcommittee?
Aye.
aye.
2 of them. Very good. Thank you.
Don did a
Absolutely.
great job with those minutes.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
All right. That does that. All right, so we have 3 budgets to look at tonight, and then capital, I believe. We're going to start with Medicare, Steve, or did you have any preference on?
Well, I
process?
think that I'd request that you start with either group insurance or capital. So those people can go. Kevin and I need to stay. So
All right, we'll go to budget 46 for group insurance. And I can share if necessary, which I usually do. So group insurance, I think I have. And any initial comments or comments from the subcommittee first? What up am I sharing? You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Any comments from the subcommittee?
Sure. Jim, the subcommittee met with Steve and Kevin and their staff to review these. Obviously, the biggest item here is the health insurance premiums. Those are going up a little over 5%, which is what we kind of expect, or health insurance premiums or see generally with health insurance premiums. The subcommittee spent a lot of time talking about the efforts of the staff to make sure that the plans that the employees in town are enrolled in are the best, most cost-effective plans. And I think they've done a great job with that. We also talked about basically making sure that we have money there for people who may need to join that aren't currently enrolled, either new employees or employees turning 26 or other folks, folks retiring, not previously on benefits, and then going into the health insurance program before age 65. And then we talked about the opt-out program and the success of that program as well. So overall, I think it's a very reasonable budget, and at 3.34% is an expected increase. It's noteworthy that we expect this year about 800,000 to go back to the general fund, to free care, and that we're continuing to fund OPEB at 1.4 million.
I just echo Jim, great job by our staff. I was a little bit nervous this coming in, when the GIC rates came in. There's been a lot of changes there, a lot of combination of plans, and I don't even think Amy Forziati, I don't think we're even in open enrollment yet, are we? Is that another week away?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, so that is another week. So we will be working person by person to see about moving them to a plan that works for them and that is more cost effective for us. So very pleased with all the hard work and how this came in. Not too bad, and we can continue to show benefits from that move many moons ago to go into the GIC. I think it was in 2012. So
Correct.
Great. Kevin, did you need to or want to go over highlights, or was that already covered?
I'll go over quickly, Jim. We're requesting an overall budget increase of $507,696 over the current fiscal year. On average, the health insurance costs are increasing approximately 5.7% for fiscal 24. Tax levy portion of the budget went up $341,175. The increase from the enterprise funds totaled $166,521. As mentioned, this budget does fund the OPEB trust fund. Current balance in that account is $27,820,000. And just the overall increase for next year on the tax levy side, 2.6%. On average, healthcare is going up approximately 5.7% next year. So the money that we're going to be returning this year, approximately 800,000, we're using some of that savings next year because we're only going up on the budget. On the tax levy side, 2.63, overall increase is 5.7. So next year, we're not anticipating such a robust return to the general fund for next year.
we say that every year, and then Amy makes liars of us, though. So
That's true too. That's true.
So you're saying there was a
And
bigger
we'll try and
increase?
do it again this
That's right, Amy, exactly. So there was a bigger increase, but you're offsetting it by reducing your budget and looking to return less. Is that what I think you just said?
That's correct.
Amy, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, we're in a similar situation this year as we were last year. Last year, we were faced with 2 plans that were being discontinued, and we had to matriculate those people into new plans. We were able to matriculate them into better plans for us and for the employees, so we realized a cost savings. We're again in that situation this year. We have the Tufts products going away. They've been acquired by Harvard Pilgrim. So again, it's an opportunity to get in front of the employees and maybe right size them into better plans that are maybe a little more cost effective and more feature rich. So it's a great opportunity again for us this year.
All right, as you can see, you got all the multiple tabs on this this document. Dan, I think you had your hand. Sorry, anybody else want to speak about it?
Yeah, I was going to speak about it as a member of the subcommittee, but Kevin and Amy covered
Yep.
the points I was going to make, so I'm good.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
I didn't get any credit, Dan.
No,
Oh.
forget it later.
All right, great. Anybody else comments, questions on the healthcare? All right, appreciate the effort and services from the group, Amy. Doug, I think you have a question up, hand up. Can't hear you though, but yep,
I
thanks.
guess I'm trying to, and I'm sure that I'm just trying to reconcile something incorrectly here, but on that plan dollars page, it looks like the total cost comes out to 12,519,000. And then, which is different than the 15,503,000. Is that,
So the 12.9 is the appropriation under the tax levy.
okay. Oh, yeah, oh, because the 12,900 plus then the personnel costs. All right, now I understand. I'm sorry. I think. Do I understand? So the 12,519,000. And then that connects to the tax levy number of 13,082,000.
I'm sorry, where are you looking?
Am I looking at, is this fiscal year 23, the 12,519,000 on the plan dollars page?
So this, it's just a rough estimate, to be honest. Like I said, we have a couple of plans going away, so we're going into newer plans, but that does definitely connect to the front page. It's part of that 12.7 number that's on the account appropriation.
Okay, yeah, so that I guess was my thing, is I was trying to understand. So this is, you're just essentially, this is fiscal 23 and you're projecting it based on, okay.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
fine.
You good, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I'm astonished. I think that's my first question on health insurance in 10 years.
We do
So-
appreciate that.
So Jim, I think I can add a couple of things. So there's the premium cost for those that we know are going to be enrolled. Then there's also, I think there's a appropriation for anticipated new subscribers.
Yes.
And then there's a additional appropriation for the opt-out
I
program.
think it's page 2. Page 2, Jim, I think shows those. There you go. If you scroll that up, there's your 12.5. Doug.
Additional subscribers, yep.
Cost of opt-out, which we get on the other side. You know, some
So-
other costs in there.
And the additional subscribers, I think maybe, I think Don maybe mentioned, you know, we have some 257 people not enrolled who are employed here. So if we do add some additional subscribers in anticipation of those turning 26, retirements, and then maybe a replacement coming in, being stuck with 2 plans.
Anybody else?
Sorry, on that one, it's just the additional subscribers, I assume the town appropriation of, it looks like it's 135,499. And then that's exactly equal to the sum of the Wakefield Muni Gas and Light numbers. Is it just that we have the same number of employees join on both sides? Is it just a straight number?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow where you were.
So if cell B8, the additional subscribers, the town appropriation is 135.5 essentially.
Yeah, that's our estimate. And then we figure.
And
school-
then you estimated the gas and light and the water combined here equals the same number. That's just the number of subscribers
That's
you're
the same.
going to have. So 166, and 90,333 are equal to 135,499. But those are two separate numbers, I think, but it just happens they came up.
Oh, it just happened to equal each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys with Excel, you're crazy.
Sadly, Steve, that wasn't with Excel. That was just iPhone.
So Doug, I think they basically budget a cost per subscriber, and it depends how they allocate. I think they probably allocated the same number of potential new subscribers to the gas and light and the water as they have to the town.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
And with all due credit, Karen Doucette, who works with me in Human Resources, puts an enormous amount of effort. She knows way too much about all of our employees, and she knows who's turning 26. She knows who's going to retire. So I have great confidence. She does the additional subscriber portion for sure. And I have great confidence that she has people slotted as to where she's expecting them.
Thanks.
All right, great. Any other questions? Doug, and we have you on the committee because you can eyeball stuff like that, so I appreciate that. All right, Amy, and anybody else that is on for the insurance, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Maybe go to
Capital.
Frank, let him go. Unless you want to keep
Yeah.
him hanging around, Jim, which is
No,
fine.
capital it is. Frank, I have a presentation. You want me to put it up or?
Yeah, sure. It's quick.
Yeah.
It's the same as we always have every year, just different items.
Hold on, let me just get it open.
So hi, everybody. So here's an overview of the oh, way to go. You got that?
I got it.
Jim?
I'm coming
no
back.
problem.
I was just
No, not a
Just
big
trying to
deal.
have
I'll
it,
go through it real quick.
I don't know where I put it now. I got it.
Did everybody get a copy of the full budget?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to obviously highlight a couple items here in this presentation. We have the same committee that we've had for at least the past 2 years, maybe 3 years. 2 years definitely, and then we might have added Frank a couple years ago. Go ahead to the next page, Jim.
Yep.
Obviously, you guys are mostly aware of the process of what we do. All the heads of the departments send their budgets to Joe, and they're presented to us. When we start meeting in February, we start, first week of February, and then by the end of March, by now, we've met about 6 or 7 times. This year, the initial request was at 6.7 million for the tax levy. The water was around 842,000, and the sewer was at 667,000. And we invite all interested department heads to come in and make their cases for each of the items that they would like in their budget. Go ahead, Jim, for the next one. A couple of fleet items that passed this year that we approved for the budget. Obviously, the 3 cruises, we've been trying to stay with that every year. Last year, we only had 2 cruises. because there wasn't a demand for the third, and we also, for their third vehicle, we gave them their transport van that they've been asking for quite a while. So that worked out well last year, and this year we were up to giving them the 3 cruisers again. Even though this is one of those items that, 10 years ago was probably $100,000 less than it is now, but just for the 3 vehicles, but that is what it is with the inflation and the costs of the vehicles and all the equipment inside them. The sidewalk plow, as you see on the left, I believe this is going to be the 3rd one, and they're not going to need any of these for a while. It's definitely the 2nd one in the last 3 years, and I think we had one before then. So he's going to be well off. That $45,000 number is a 5-year lease. It obviously costs a lot. It gets closer to 200,000. The full number I think is on the sheet. Nope, it's not. But it's a 5-year lease number at the 45,000. Then we have a UTV for the Parks Department that's over there on the bottom right. That is the full cost, 45,000 for the town to use, mostly for the cemeteries and the parks. All right, Jim, go to the next one, please. And for the buildings this year, we had a big run on fixing a number of roofs that really started leaking. The Cultural Exchange was on, I think, for a couple of years, and the BB was getting repaired. The first one there, the town hall, you can see the picture there. It's the 70,000 is just for that circled addition. The other roofs were already replaced. I think the small rubber roof was replaced with excess monies Joe had in the previous couple of years. So that one's already done. So the only one left for the town hall was that last roof, and that's 70,000. The 55,000 for the Albion Cultural Exchange is for the full roof, soup to nuts. And that was pretty urgent with all of the stuff that wants to be done there, I should say, over the next couple of years. Obviously, having a good roof is important to make sure none of the work is ruined, and it was in need of it. And then the big one is the BB Library. It's I want to say 95% full roof replacement on that. That'll take care of that entire thing. They've been asking for a while, but this year we were told that it's getting pretty bad up there, and it's going to start ruining items on the upper floors. So we decided to put that in there as well. And then you have a chiller AC replacement at the Woodville School. This is going to be our next run of big items over the next couple of years on the schools, since obviously the Woodville Schools, at least, I would say, over 20 years old. So that's the original unit that they've been repairing for the last couple of years. So that's going to take care of that and should handle the Woodville for a while. The next one's going to be the Doll Bear, but we'll hopefully deal with that next year. I'm sorry, any questions? All right, Jim, you can go to the next one, please. There's a $80,000 mobile lift for the DPW. You can see that there on the right with that green truck. Those units are unique because they actually move around. They're not bolted to the ground. They can actually do that out in the parking lot. So it's a very unique system that gives them a lot of flexibility in repairing things and getting stuff done. And obviously over the last couple of years, over the last 10 years, they've got a lot of new equipment. So if they can keep that new equipment well maintained, hopefully in the long run, that'll be very helpful for us. We approved $20,000 for 2 outdoor water fountains at Lake Quannapowitt. The picture of that one there on the screen is from Vets Field. They get rotted. Off the top of my head, I want to say that one's been there for 20 years and it gets pretty rotted, but obviously the new ones will be updated and have the doggy nozzle as well. But they need more than just the 2, but we figured we can take a bite out of this every year. The $14,000 for the gear lockers is for the Greenwood Fire Station. That improves all their gear lockers and increases it to a workable size that they can actually fit all their gear in. Next one, Jim. So our approved recommended tax levy is $2,239,875. This is up from last year. Oh, I had it here somewhere. I want to say it's up 6.7% from last year. But one of the items that I didn't highlight in my presentation was $300,000 for monument restoration on the Upper Common. And Joe is pretty confident, Joe and Steve are pretty confident that we're gonna get at least $100,000 back on that. So that would bring us below the 5% increase that was recommended every year. So obviously we had to, Joe said we had to put the full amount in, the 300,000 in order to even apply for that, but he's very confident we're gonna get that. And then that'll just go back into the basic funds, the 100,000 when it comes out. I went through all those items pretty quick. If you guys can see the list there, if there's any questions on any of the items you want to, you let me know what the questions are. If I can't tackle them, I can surely find out for you.
All right, anybody got questions? Capital for Frank?
Yes,
Don, your hand is up.
Yeah, Frank, those mobile lifts,
yes.
So just the picture of that makes me nervous that there's a safety issue with those mobile lifts.
I don't think Joe would be recommending anything that wasn't safe. We kind of cut and pasted that out of a picture. Obviously, there's no background or anything. It's gonna be on a level surface. It's a good system. And the way it was, obviously I asked some questions too about it. It doesn't need to be permanently anchored in the ground. It obviously has to be on a level surface. It's a crank. If you can picture it, if it makes a difference, it's a crank as it raises and then they lock. So it's not an issue of anything's going to fall on anybody. It's pretty secure. Joe's not going to go out to BJ's and get a cheap lift system. That's pretty expensive for a lift. So it's definitely a good quality lift.
Okay.
All right, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. A couple quick questions on the equipment on the fleet section. You have sander plow for 30,000. So I'm assuming that does not include the vehicle. These are just attachments to the vehicle?
Yes, I believe that's a great question.
Because it says equipment number 125 and
Yeah, no, I see it. I see it there.
I don't know if 125 is like a pickup truck or is it, because typically if you just have a plow or a sander unit,
Yeah.
that would wouldn't get a number, and this did.
I think it's for a small pickup with a sander and a plow. Because it does
Not for 30,000.
It could be a small one. That does seem like a low price. That's one that off the top of my head, I don't know. I can find out from Joe.
So the other option, perhaps what it could be is like a 3-year lease.
No, do you see on the list, we have the 5-year lease, so Joe's pretty good about separating that out. We only had 2 lease items on this year, and that was for the large dump truck and the Bombardier snow sidewalk plow. But even that, a 90,000 would be too much for a pickup. I can find out. I can definitely get back to you on that. Not a problem. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, if you had a F-350 King Ranch with plow and sander, you might get 90,000.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what I'm thinking it might be just for the equipment for one of the big trucks now that you're saying that because of the price, but I don't remember talking about it. I don't remember Joe talking about it. I will find out the answer back to Jim so he can know and let you guys know.
Yeah, because that one sort of jumped out at me.
I better find out for town meeting because I'm getting that question at the town meeting too.
Yeah, probably. And then the other thing, I have a question on the DPW North Avenue buildings, automatic transfer switch. Can you tell me what that's about?
That is for power. Something to do with electrical power and if the switch goes down and rerouting it.
Yeah, so
Obviously, that's a good.
That's usually for tied into the generator. That's an auto transfer for generator.
Yeah,
So when you lose power and the generator kicks on, transfers automatically, Dan, instead of a manual.
No, I know about that because I have the
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah.
I have solar and a generator here at my place in Maine, and
Yep.
they had to install two switches, one for each. So
I
am
assume that's
familiar
what
with
it's
that.
for, although I don't know. That's just.
yeah, it
Yeah.
would be, it would be just for the equipment as well, because Mike, the electrician, would do all the work. So it would be just for equipment.
Ah, okay. And then for the Galvin PRV,
That is for the pressure relief valve for the water. So I'm gonna try to sum this up. Someone else might know better than me on the call. So initially, when the school was built, there was an issue with the faucets and the pressure was too high. So they had to put a pressure relief valve in so that it wouldn't blow out all the bathroom faucets. There's concern that if it goes again, that it is gonna cause issues with everything again. So they wanted to add a second one just to make sure there was no issues in case the first one failed. Does,
yeah, I do
is-
recall them replacing faucets a couple of years ago.
yeah, Joe, are you on the call?
I am.
Joe Bertrand, did I
Yeah.
explain that kind of correctly?
That's exactly right. There was water, the high water pressure was causing faucets to fail. Then they put in the pressure relief valve, and this is a sort of a backup for that as well. There was a huge problem with the faucets. They were new lead type energy efficient faucets that were brand new, and they were not as good as they were advertised, I should say.
Okay, and then between now and town meeting, you want to fix the spelling for Dolbear, 'cause I don't think that's how it's spelled. I think the rest of the things are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Dan. Doug? Doug?
Yeah, coming.
Sorry, sorry.
I'll even lower my hand now. So quick question, and I thought a couple of years ago, we finally had moved like the fire department's uniforms or whatever, that we managed to get those out of this budget and they were self-budgeting those things. I mean, the 55 high visibility jackets, are those really capital, or should those be part of their budget?
yeah, we had a lot of discussion on these items. It went back and forth with us. So again, if I explained it correctly, this gives every firefighter, 55 of them, a new jacket. The existing jackets are heavyweight and contain materials that are hazardous but haven't been.
Frank, I don't care about them getting the new jackets. I just don't think they should be part of your capital. I think they should have been part of the fire budget. Like this isn't really a you question. This is probably a Steve and whoever's on the fire subcommittee, because I used to be on it and we used to have this
Okay.
fight all the time.
We did
I
discuss.
don't think
we
it
did
belongs in
discuss it.
capital, and I still don't think it belongs in capital, and Steve's gonna tell me that I'm wrong, but that's okay.
No, I think
Doug,
I think it's an arguable point, but I think we thought with the recent, we thought for this purpose, this year was a good place. It was the better place to put it. I think Joe.
Can we make it part of negotiations?
We're gonna save you
Doug.
from cancer? No.
Doug, the subcommittee had the same question, and we had a very long conversation about essentially what is capital and what isn't, and it had to do with these jackets as well.
And then the question on the cruisers is, because it's a big number. The question is do we think that number, is that similar to the number that was posted last year? And do we think that the price of cruisers have come down from from last year to this year with, along with the price of every other car in America.
They certainly, I'm looking at last year's right now.
And last year we might have paid more than we budgeted for them, but that's,
Yeah, no, they definitely have been going up every year. So last year was a little different because we had 2 cruisers and the van. And I think the van, Steve, you might know, I think the van was actually a little cheaper than the cruisers.
Correct.
We
It
had
was the prisoner
budgeted,
van, yeah.
yeah, we had budgeted 191,000 last year for 2 cruisers and the transport van. And then the year before, we were at 186 for 3 cruisers. And again, personal comments, I can send you the estimates. We obviously get exact estimates. I can send those over to Jim so we can distribute it to you guys. But obviously, the vehicles have been changing. And it's not up to us to decide what they purchase. We just do the funds. So it has been SUVs. The equipment inside them are a lot different, more money, and all the radio equipment and everything. And we do see 3 different quotes when he asked for these. So I can forward those all over to Jim so he can distribute it all to you guys. So you can see exactly what he's not hiding anything.
no.
It's a number, it's a budget number, but they are going up every year.
It's okay. I think we're sort of fine with those numbers. And then the fear we would have, and this gets probably to Dan Sherman in terms of for just because you've added in couple of new leases this year, or they're going to be 5-year leases. So next year we're starting with $375,000 in, almost fleet leases. So that number's going to jump a ton next year. So that might take away some of what, it's
And
just
then the year after it drops. I have that here.
yeah,
right
it drops dramatically, but my guess is somehow there's going to be a new 5-year lease somewhere over the next few years. We're not going to get to 2028 and be done paying leases.
Yeah. And year to year, it does change, because I'll point out that last year we purchased a loader, and it was, I could actually tell you how much it was. It was in the 200s. And a screener, a material screener for, I want to say $150,000. Where is it? So last year we purchased a $270,000 loader and the screener for at least $150,000, and we didn't have to at least purchase any of those because we had enough room in our budget. So year to year, I think this year, what made that more difficult was obviously having 3 roofs and the AC chiller assembly in there and the monument. Those 5 items right there are big. Like if we didn't have the monument or the AC, we wouldn't have to at least purchase those 2 items. But I do think it is a year to year thing with the capital. And that's just my personal opinion.
Is this us done on monument restoration?
What's that? Say that again?
This get us done on monument restoration now?
This is one monument. And
I
it's-
think the question is, are there any others, Doug? that your question?
Yeah, I guess that's my question.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, I think that gets the whole Veterans Memorial Common done. I think that pretty much covers us. I can't think of any others.
Okay, great. I'm done.
I also, Mr. Chairman, I can answer the question on the truck.
Sure.
On the sander. So we had a truck that was a DPW truck that was totaled last year. That had a plow and a sander on it. Insurance barely covered the cost of the new truck. So this will make that truck whole. So this is just a plow and sander for that truck that was covered by insurance.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Amy,
Hi, yeah, I was just gonna ask for some elaboration on the monument restoration, just what exactly is involved with that and just some more details on it.
Sure. I think I can cover that one if you want, Frank.
Yes, please.
So this is the Monument, I think it's the Civil War monument that is in the kind of the tall one in the Veterans Memorial Common. It has a green fence around it, a green wrought iron fence around it. And that was dedicated to the town, maybe Joe knows, 1920, 20-ish,
Oh, I think it was earlier than that.
earlier than that. And it has limbs that have been broken off or fallen off. It's a pretty, this will restore the entire monument, make sure that it's safe and it's solid. We have applied for a grant, which will cover approximately 100,000 of this that we're pretty sure we're going to get. We do have to show that we have the money to do it, so we put the entire amount in here. And we're going to apply for a second grant of 15,000 in the fall that I think we'll get as well. But this will really, the monument looks really good from a distance. When you get up near it, you can really tell the problems with it and the vandalism, sadly, that's been done to it over the years. This will clean it up, and that'll make that whole upper common whole. Everything will be new in there.
Yeah,
So
also,
it'll be
Steve,
nice.
there were cracks in it. There
Cracks
were,
and yeah.
yeah, the foundation had problems with it. Many of the fingers of the soldiers had broken off. It needs a lot of work. And this is going to do a good job restoring it.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Amy, you're good? Yep, thank you. Ellie, did you have a hand up or are you good?
I'm good. My questions were around Lisa's monument and jackets, so you guys are covered. So thanks.
Great. Stefan,
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question regarding the mobile post lift. I agree with John. It looks pretty precarious to see that truck up there, all four wheels on these lifts that, well, I mean, as the name suggests, they're mobile. But just curious, are we bereft of stationary lifts like inside buildings, or is there a particular use case for these that I guess that we've encountered, enough times to justify such a cost in the past?
I won't have the full answer. If you have a better answer, Steve, let me know. But I do know part of the mobile request was that a lot of the larger vehicles cannot be, not only because of the weight, that's why they need the new lift. The existing lifts can't handle the weight, but inside the garage, they can't lift it up because of the height as well. So that's why they're mobile and he can do it out. They can also lift it outside the building. That's about my extent. As far as the safety, I'm sure that they're not buying something that's not going to be well secured when it's lifting the trucks. But I can ask Joe to put something together and send it out to you guys so it can answer those questions and make you feel a little more comfortable.
And I guess just one last question on this. This one thing is, does this have any impacts on our insurance costs?
Steve?
The lift, I would think not, but we'll check into that as well. I'm also asking Joe Conway the question on the lift, so maybe I'll have an answer in a few minutes.
And I guess a last question. I think I've seen these the leases on the capital request over the years, but it's I guess for these particular leases, like for instance the snowplow, $45K a year. Would it be cheaper for us to just own this? I assume these leases, at least for the snowplow, it's something that we would do now, pay that over the next 5 years, and then after the 5th year is up, we would buy it again.
No,
At
it's a
whatever the
lease.
new
No.
rate is.
It's a lease purchase.
Oh, lease to buy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Perfect.
You get
Thank
it for zero at the end, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that includes the interest. The 45,000 times 5 years includes the interest over the 5 years.
Access. Excellent. Sorry. Yeah, I actually just noticed this now. L/P. That's lease to purchase.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And just in case you guys can't say the lease schedule, it'll bring this year's to 372,000. I'm sorry, it'll bring this year's to 247,000. Nope, I was right. 372,000, and then it'll drop next year. Two trucks drop off in fiscal year 2026. So no, that's 2 years away. And then it drops off again in 27. We used to 10 years ago, we used to have 500, half our budget was IT leases. So we've come a long way, and I was very happy last year when we didn't have to purchase anything, but sometimes to get everything, we'll just have to accommodate for that next year. And then obviously that's all the tax levy items. And then the sewer division and water division, we have 477,000 in the sewer, which is on that list as well at the bottom. Yeah, you can see it right in front of you. And the water division, 667,000. And that comes out of, Steve, that comes out of the reserve fund, correct? For now?
Yeah, those will be out of the water and sewer reserve. Yeah.
Great. That was gonna be one of my questions, where the money comes from on the water source side. It's out of the reserve of the retained earnings or reserve, Steve? Is it both or different?
Kevin, Kevin's going to answer this because I screwed up a town meeting last year and we had to revote it. So I think it's reserved.
Right, that, I believe it is reserves that, they couldn't fit it under their rate that they were charging for water and sewer, so it did come from reserve. And I believe that's gonna be, again, the same thing, for fiscal 24.
All right, I don't know if you know or if Joe went over it. I mean, the $500,000 for the water mains, any idea what that mileage is?
Is that repairs for the water?
It's water mains, yeah.
Steve might know it better than me, but I think it's for repairs as they go along, or even upgrades over the next year. I think that they're doing the water mains, they've been doing it in conjunction with the gas and national grid upgrades throughout the town. So that's why it's such a big number this year. But Steve, do you know better?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The worst thing to do to a road once you pave it is to have a new utility cut. So we're trying to get ahead on all these, and that's why it's taking a little longer, but we're replacing water mains, manholes, other systems improvements all through in the water and sewer division as we continue with the paving program. So that's
Great.
really getting us ahead of the game there.
Right, I remember, Steve, that's what Joe Conway talked about at the meeting.
And I can give some info on that lift now too.
Sure.
Joe says they are industry standard for heavy duty fleets. So it is safe in their industry standard. And the problem is that in our existing DPW garage, which at some point, I don't know, that maybe that'll be the next project for Joe and the permanent building committee someday. That the floor isn't good, the lifts don't go high enough. Some of the built-in lifts there are old and can't accommodate the heavy trucks or aren't strong enough to. So this is getting us through to the next level, make sure we can repair our fleet and save money. And Joe thinks they're very safe. So.
Great. Stefan, you have another question? Yep.
Yeah, just one item, the farm streets pump rebuilds under the sewer section.
Yes.
I believe under the DPW budgets that we reviewed, I believe it was last time we met. We also had a line item in there for pump rebuilds as well. And I just wanted to make sure we were not double counting.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know Joe talked about the critical nature of the Farm Street station and earmarking that rebuild. So I don't know if those are two different line items that they labeled sort of the similarly, Stefan. I don't have it in front of me.
Steve, you want to ask Joe?
Yeah. How about should tell them to hop on and stop being.
Stop cleaning up after the children and doing things around the house.
Well, new baby, he's
I know. Yep.
All right. I just asked him to hop on. We can get that maybe answered when he comes back.
Is that right for now, Stefan?
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right, I'll Any other questions? All right, Frank and committee, thank you for your time and your efforts and appreciate it.
No,
Thank
no
you, Frank.
problem. And I'll just, if you let me just review real quick, over the last 5 years, we haven't, we've talked about it in the past about going up 5% every year, which we did last year. And this year it is 6.7%, but it will drop below 5% once we get the 100,000 back, which is what we were looking at. We wanted to stay in that area. So we hope that, the finance committee and town council and Steve are all going to be happy with giving us 5%, letting us go up 5% every year, as long as the town can handle it. Because that's what we're looking for.
Great, thank you.
Don't get greedy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Frank,
Frank.
thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Steve, and
Take care.
others that helped. All right. Take care, Steve.
Thank you.
See you, Frank. Okay,
Frank.
so the only other one we had, Steve, was Cablevision and Medicare, right?
Medicare, yeah. Why don't you have Kevin jump on and do Medicare? Then we can just go down, keep in order.
Yep.
Medicare it is.
Jim, you ready?
All set.
Okay. Medicare budget, we're recommending that this budget be increased $87,051 over the current fiscal year. This budget is used to pay the town's portion of the Medicare tax. This is salary-based tax for employees hired after 1986. Tax rate is 1.45%. Total budget request is $961,331. There is a breakdown tab, how I came up with that figure. So these are the payrolls for the current fiscal year. Then I projected down the bottom of that page, Jim, the run out for the next several warrants. I do have some offsets in there from a couple of the school accounts. I anticipate spending this year approximately $909,000. It is budgeted for $874,000. So we are going to need a reserve fund transfer of approximately $35,000 for the current fiscal year. Then I took projected the salaries for fiscal 23, the projected number for fiscal 24, including the police and fire contracts that aren't settled yet. And then I took that total number and multiplied it by the 5.65%, which is the total increase to the salaries from fiscal 22 to 20. I'm sorry, from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24 to come up to the 961,331.
All right, so
This is a budget that
go ahead.
that we have been chasing this budget the past couple of years, Jim. You can see on that page that we have done reserve fund transfers for the past couple of years. And looking to get it right this time. So we are going to need one for fiscal 23. When you include that into what we expect to spend, this budget, hopefully we will not need a reserve fund going forward after this year.
Great. Thank you. Questions, Dawn?
Sorry, I was on mute. Kevin, I noticed that we are allocating the Medicare costs to the revolving accounts for Wakefield Academy and
Yeah.
preschool here.
That's
But,
correct.
as we discussed the other day, we don't do that with any of the other benefits. Is the Medicare the only thing we charge back to those grants and revolving accounts?
Currently, that's correct.
Dawn?
All set.
Dan?
Yeah, so Kevin, one of the things I did was I took your total police and fire contract 340 plus the 24 salaries, and I got you 64,374 on line 101. But then I multiplied that by 1.45%, which is the tax rate, and I get 133,425. So it's a difference of roughly $30,000. Nothing to get excited about. But why are you using that particular method rather than taking 1.45% times your 64.4 million?
I'm sorry, run that by me again, Dan.
Okay, so if you take your 60, you see your 64.374 million on line 101?
Yep,
Okay, you multiply that by 1.45%, which is the tax rate, you get 933 versus your 961.
right, but Medicare, we pay on everything, Dan, that when we get a school grant, say we get a Title I grant that they hire a couple teachers with,
Yeah,
that those teachers get paid a salary, it gets charged off to a grant account. And we're also paying Medicare for those teachers also.
okay, so what you're telling me is that the column E does not include everything in terms of pay.
Correct.
Okay.
That was just to get a base idea of what the overall increase for salaries would be from one year to the next.
Okay. Okay, so that works for me. But it's also a little bit scary in this fact that our salaries are going 5.65% because our revenues are not going up that much.
Correct.
I'm done. Thank you.
That it, Dan? Anybody else? Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Then we have Cablevision.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Conway is on. If you have any, if there was at least one question I couldn't answer. So maybe if Stefan asks that again, we can let Joe go back to washing bottles or changing diapers, whatever he was doing.
Good evening, Joe. Thank you for jumping in.
Yeah, no problem. I apologize for being tardy. How's everybody doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Joe, sorry. There was a line item on the capital budget. It was for Farm Street pump rebuild.
Yep.
And so I just raised the question that in the sewer budget that we reviewed last time we met, there was also a line item in there. It was a new line item that appeared. It was for 40K for pump rehabilitation. And I wasn't sure if that was a double count or if we're talking about two separate pumps.
No, so they both serve the same purpose, but two separate things. So inside the building at Farm Street, I think I mentioned at least to the TC, probably when we were doing my budget, there's 3 main pumps in there. Everything that goes down the drain eventually goes to that building, gets pushed to Deer Island. The capital line for 70,000, I think it is, that's in this is to rebuild one of those pumps. Outside of that, though, what we have throughout town, we have 18 smaller pumps that are more of a operational need for us to address them every once in a while. So this is to replace one of the bigger ones that sees, heavy duty use. And then for some of our smaller stuff, we're just going to get onto a regular maintenance plan to get those addressed every couple of years because, they run 24/7 and don't shut off. And if they do shut off, our phone's going to be ringing and, the person on the other end of the line is not going to be too happy with us. So.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was there anything else for Joe on the capital side? Anybody while we have him? I think I asked about the water mains, Joe, the $500,000, about how much water main mileage that got.
It should get us, depending on where we are in the size of the pipe, it should get us a complete street. So it should get, I'll give you an example, like Aborn Ave is an area that we want to do, Emerson Street. So depending on where we finish, this spring, when the money comes available, we'll be looking to get an additional street, maybe 2, done with that. So a realistic picture would be like Aborn Ave, say from Main Street to Vernon Street. We'll accomplish that.
Appreciate it. Anybody else have questions for Joe? All right, Joe, that was light and easy. Sorry to bother you.
Oh, perfect.
Joe.
Anytime. I appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for
Thanks.
getting them.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, are we Cablevision?
Yes, the Cable Public Access Enterprise Fund account. We're recommending that this budget be decreased $47,629. This budget is funded from receipts from our cable providers. We have 3 for the town of Wakefield. We have Verizon, we have Comcast, and we have RCN. This budget is based on prior and current year revenue estimates and is apportioned by the town's agreements. Revenues have been trending down approximately 2% year over year. And the capital portion of the budget was down $37,500. The reason for that was in fiscal 23, the current fiscal year, we received 2 capital payments from Verizon. We received the fiscal 22 in the fiscal 23 payment in the current year. Next year, we're only going to receive 1 payment, the fiscal 24 payment of $37,500. So that's the decrease there. The personnel portion of this budget for fiscal 24 is $149,537. And this is used for salaries at the Wakefield High School for 2 teachers that they have in their media department. The contractual services portion of the budget, $346,839, is used for payments to WCAT, which is a 503c that was set up to provide these services to the town. Total budget request for fiscal 24 is $558,876.
Very good. And this is new only a few years ago in this look, I would say. Dan, question?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I mean, I don't have any trouble with this budget, but I'm more troubled by the trend. Long-term basis, you know, I suspect this is going to continue to go down as people using other services like, you know, Hulu or Amazon or whatever. And where is this going? Is this going to get to the point where we're going to have to supplement this budget with, you know, a tax levy because we just can't provide the services and can't keep the people at WCAT? I mean, where is this headed? Any idea, any indication?
Well, I think Ryan Boyd is on tonight that he did speak. Ryan is with WCAT. He did speak at the town council meeting on Monday night, basically with regards to your question, Dan. Ryan, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Ryan, did you want to address that, Ryan? And
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question, Mr. Sherman. The short answer is, yeah, the trend is continuing, and it will continue as far as what we believe. More and more people are cutting cable to go to streaming services, and there is there's nothing in place to replace it, essentially, on a federal or a state level. Now, there are things in the works on the state level. There's a streaming bill that we being cable access stations all across the state have been fighting for the last 4 or 5 years to be recognized and cared about and passed. But, you know, things being what they are, it sort of gets kicked down the line time and time again. So we, you know, as Kevin mentioned, when we spoke to town council, we did bring up the fact that this is a real issue. It's a problem for us, and you know, we already have lost people that we had to replace because they, you know, found employment elsewhere. And so, you know, if it continues to happen, it will get less and less, and we will not be able to continue to hold on to our people because we'll have to downsize. And it will be a problem for us covering important town events and government meetings and things that we do now. So it's an issue that we've been trying to highlight now for a few years. And, you know, we're trying to work with town leaders, town council to address this, to come up with potential solutions, long-term funding solutions. And so, you know, I'm happy to answer whatever questions I can, and have this discussion.
So I guess one question, is there a legal reason for some funding from the town and the tax levy? In other words, is there a prohibition of adding tax levy monies to this enterprise accounts, or is that something that's verboten under the rules?
Not sure that'll be a question that I can answer.
Have you Tom Mullen question?
I can answer
Possibly.
the question. Dan, there's no prohibition about using tax levy to support these functions. It's considered a municipal function under the law.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Great. Brian, thanks. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Question?
One thing we did talk about at the town council meeting, Mr. Chairman, was setting up a committee to look at that. The streaming bill is one option of many. Sponsorships are another option. Looking very closely, frankly, at the money that's going to the schools. Is that being used for the cable purpose? Something we have to talk about, because it used to be very much involved in the studios. So there is a big look at this from our standpoint. And we had a breakfast not too long ago here that had probably the entire, big part of the state delegation of the North Shore, from Gloucester to, our state delegation. And I spoke, and that was one of the things I spoke on, was the streaming bill. And I told them that of all the town managers in the room, we really are going to be disappointed if we have to legitimately, go to the tax levy for this service where they haven't done anything on the streaming bill. So I think that it was Bruce Tarr in Gloucester was very interested and seemed very engaged. So we're going to be working with the Mass Municipal Association to really try to push this forward, and working with Ryan and his lobbying team, on behalf of the other state agencies. So it's on our radar.
And from that, the streaming bill, you're implying maybe a tax?
Yeah, I'm applying, some sort of a pass-through to the municipalities for these services. Yeah. Because let's face it, our kids, Jim, none of them have cable. None of them have landlines. I mean,
No, they don't. Not at all. My aunt calls me on my landline. That's it.
Yeah.
Doug Butler.
Is the money we receive from the various and sundry cable companies, is it on a per subscriber basis, or is it on a price of is it a percentage of bill basis?
I'd like to say both. So it's
Okay.
percentage. It's depending on which company we're talking about. Each contract's a little different, about 4.5% on the gross revenues based on their subscriber count.
Okay. And then, but do we just get it on the cable TV portion, or do we get it on the internet portion?
Just cable TV, and these companies have gotten real tricky, because you may have cable, but you may be on an internet package, and if you are on an internet package, that does not count towards cable revenue.
And then, I think I don't know where did we end the year, in terms of WCAT, the 501c3, in terms of assets and liabilities, like in terms of end of year balances that we had, or, even current? Like what is our, because the last numbers I have are like from 2021 or something like that.
Yeah. And total assets, we're at about 700,000 right now.
Okay. And losing about $100,000 a year, right?
Yes. And it's going to, with a 2% decrease, it will continue to grow in
accelerate
deficit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a little time on this, folks, but not a lot. In terms of figuring out where to get, if you want to keep the service, where do you get it from? So figuring out how we pay for all those things. Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Ryan, thank you for being on with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Kevin, thanks. That hits everything on the list, correct? That's the, yep.
Correct.
All right. I will open it up for committee comments. I will say, and I don't know if people get the local paper, but since the last meeting, Dan and others had brought up some of the revolving accounts for the school committee, and I'm part of the subcommittee. We had some email exchanges following that meeting. We had a meeting about it. Steve did a lot of work concurrent behind the scenes, and I think Steve and the school committee came up with Stephen in the school, I guess part of the committee came up with a way to decrease the budget by $500,000 to get it from 522 down to 417, I believe is the number, correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen that, the new budget from them yet. So my understanding is the tax levy portion was decreased.
Yeah, so they were on, so I got on the meeting last night. Dan was on the meeting last night, which is a public participation section of the meeting. I was just there to observe. Dan brought up some points. He was the only person to talk from the public. And again, that's the time for the public to give input or contemplate that the budget. And then subsequent to that, Doug Lyons and the other folks that were on the subcommittee that we talked to and deal with through the process, they worked through and voted to lower the tax requested budget down to the 417. So shaving $500,000 off of their tax levy ask, using some money, and again, the black box hasn't been fully uncovered yet, but it's $500,000 from either revolving accounts or somewhere else. But in the end, I believe the tax levy is going to be dropped on the school side. So that was an interesting activity within the last 2 weeks. I think from the last time we met, Dan had some dialogue offline as well with Christine on numbers and then some analysis. And that's my piece on that. And Dan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So further to that discussion on Tuesday, what I heard was the 500,000 was going to be coming from ARPA funds and revolving accounts, and principally they were looking at the Wakefield Academy. One of the things that Doug had said is that the challenge for 25 and 26 is still out there, because the revolving account in ARPA is a one-time temporary funding source. And so what I did was go ahead and put in the 500,000 into my forecast. And I don't know if you want to bring that up, if Steve gives me the.
I already did.
Oh, you already did. We can transition to that, but which I'll do. But one of the couple of things that came out that surprised me. One was I had heard Christine say that because their net school spending target or their foundation went from like $40 million to $42 million, and it was a 5% increase, that they had to increase their budget by 5%. And I heard that Tuesday night, and I thought, that's not right. And so I checked with DESE, and a guy by the name of Hannah confirmed, Steve, what you and I had talked about, is that all we have to do is have net school spending above the 42 million. Well, our net school spending is like 67 million. So I don't know why Christine had made that statement. but DESE said it was incorrect. The other thing that was not discussed was, very much anyway, was the circuit breaker. They have roughly $980,000 that was left over from previous years and unused. And thank you very much, Ed, for clarifying how that works. Basically, you can retain up to 1 year's worth of aid, which for them is almost $1.7 million. So they can retain $985,000. If they retain more than that, then the excess gets reverted back to the town. So we did get some clarification on that. To me, though, if the schools decide to, maintain this $1 million and use it for, sped costs in current and future, why do we have a sped stabilization account? It seems to be redundant because now they've got $1 million that they did not spend, and they got another, I think, 300 and some thousand. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but $350,000 or so in sped stabilization.
About 310, yeah.
310? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so that means in total they're at $1.3 million roughly for a reserve for excess sped costs. So those are things that I observed, and I will attempt to share my screen.
Yeah, just on the 5% increase, I thought Christine said that was a recommended thing for foundation budget, or I thought she said it wasn't a requirement, but like recommended from their
I think you're right.
equations or something like that. I forget exactly the word she
I think
used.
it's best practice versus mandated, but
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
But Ed, maybe
Well, no, it's not recommended by DESE. So it's got to be some best practices. Maybe it's the school, the school committee organization.
guideline or something.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's not gospel by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
Right. But by using that, I think some of the school committee members feel that they need to increase by 5%. And I think as Mr. Boudreau said at the vote was, well, as long as our budget's going up 5%, 5.22%, I'm happy. And it's like, okay, yeah, you may be happy, but the rest of us may not be. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right, let me see if I can make it a little bigger so it's easier to read. So a few changes since the last time. I have a debt service amount now from Steve at $2.858 million. So that's a known amount. We're leaving the articles at roughly 2.6, includes 50,000 for miscellaneous, includes refuse, and it also includes 200,000 for fiscal year 23 reduction of free cash to balance the 23 budget. So I just threw it in there. It doesn't necessarily belong there, but it works. Steve confirmed 600,000 for overlay. I added the capital that we just heard, $2.24 million from Frank. We also, Steve was able to give me a VOC number that we think is going to be good at 2.251 million. So that's in there. For as long as I'm in education, I left the schools at 20,205,000, but then I put into my transfer tab an additional line item of available funds of $500,000 from ARPA and revolving, if that's where things end up. So those are the adjustments I made. I think that covers basically everything. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I have all the numbers I'm going to get at this point.
I believe so. Kevin,
Yeah.
I think so, right?
That's correct.
Okay, So-
Did you carry money for potential police and fire settlements?
Yeah,
Okay.
so to handle that, what I did was up here, I
Right.
took the number that we got from the budget that was presented, and I added 2% on the police, and I had 2% on fire. That may be too high, maybe too low, you know, it's a starting point. So that's how I adjusted for those two contracts. So on my estimate of local receipts, we have a shortfall of 1.6 million, 1.7, 2.5, and so forth. Again, because the school is a one-time or temporary, and we still run out of free cash on my estimates at the end of 2026. I know that my figure for local receipts is higher than Kevin's certainly, and maybe Steve's. I'm using 8.5 million. Hopefully we can do better than that, but I don't think we're gonna we need 10 million on local receipts. And money coming back from, for example, Kevin talked about the 800,000 we're estimating coming back from the healthcare budget. That'll be a
insurance,
big,
yeah.
yeah, 800,000 million, whatever the right number is. That obviously will help a lot, but we're still in a position of deficit funding. And we'll even at 800,000 or maybe 300,000 the following year, and say 0 and 27 coming back from healthcare, we're still going to run out of money. And I think the last thing I was going to take a look at was on capital as what I have for an increase, because I don't recall having, yeah, so on capital, I heard Frank say 5%. I'm running capital more at 3 or 3.5%. So he may not like these numbers, but I think Steve, you said it.
Yeah, don't get greedy.
Don't get greedy. Yeah, I'm not giving them all our money. I'm giving them 3%, not 5. Anyway, so I think that's where we stand today. We're short on revenue, and you know, Kevin, maybe you can give us an update on local receipts for 23. And I can make things a little bit better, but this is where we are today.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
If I, you know, spent a lot of time on this, well, spent a lot of time on this every day, unfortunately. But I think that if it's all right, if we could have maybe meet next week, I have a lot of thoughts on what on working on these numbers, and I'd love to work. I don't know, Dan, are you down around, or I'd like to meet in person if we
Yeah,
could.
I can make myself available.
You know, and maybe other members that want to, you know, come and see us late in the afternoon or something, because it could be, I've looked at like a number of different items I'd like to, that I think we can help with, to make those numbers a little bit better. And I also think we will return, I think between excess receipts that I'm thinking of on this fiscal year and on returns from departments, that's going to help out a lot. And I think when we see the receipts, we'll have that number a little bit better. And I also impressed upon the schools that they should try to return money to us this year, as opposed to last year when they, I think, returned what, 20,000 or so, Kevin?
If that.
40,
And
yeah,
then
20, I think it was 40 out of 1.9 million or something.
and then rolled over 1.9 million for the next fiscal year. So I think that I don't think that message was lost on the superintendent either. So, yeah, I'd love to figure out a time next week.
Yeah, and the board, the members on the board that were in the subcommittee we were on, they heard it clear, crystal clear as well. What they say and what they do are two different things, but they heard it and they acknowledged it on the return the funds side. Yeah, I don't have any problem having the subcommittee meet next week. And Doug, were you gonna say something, Butler? You just
Yeah, I think in terms of, I don't think you're probably, you know, you're not going to really see a return from the schools, but I think Dan might be this one-time notion of the 500 grand. probably could be offset for a few years.
I think so.
I think there's enough wiggle room that they have there. And I mean, not like Dan's right in terms of if this budget holds true, we will run out of money in fiscal year 26. Are we gonna run out of money in fiscal year 26? No, we're
No.
not. Like there, we have a bunch of levers that we would not run out of money until 2040 at this time frame. But it means you're underspending in other areas. It means you're taking from OPEB, you're taking from all the places that you don't necessarily want to take from long term. But yes, I mean, lest it get out unless somebody fearmonger with the town of oh, the town's running out of money. How do they still have a AAA credit rating? No. We'll see. We're not going to run out of money. We're not going to go, we're not going to exhaust all the available cash. But if we continue down this path and want to spend on everything we want to spend on, then we run out of money.
Right.
Right.
Ed,
Did I hear you say that the school department carried forward over $2 million? Is that correct? And what is that in encumbrances for liabilities? That's a lot of money to carry over.
Right. The food budget is a big one. There's that notion of the food budget that she's got to keep whatever it is, half of it.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
So,
And that's like 700 grand or something like that. Was that what it was?
No.
well, so
that-
I've got the
That
item.
wasn't part of it.
I've got the document in front of me, so, because I asked them about it again. So at the end of fiscal year 22, they had a balance of 1.9. They transferred a number of funds. They encumbered 1.03 to purchase of services, another 900 to materials and supplies. And you're right, they returned $4,000, not 40,000. I said 40, my mistake. So they had a 1.95, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, I'm looking at the sheet from the end of the year. I believe it is. And anyway, but they said they were prepaying tuitions for
Which
sped.
they can legally do that. Yeah, they can
Yeah,
prepay.
but you got a purchase service line of 1.0 and you've got a materials and supplies of 900. So 2 million or 1.9, whatever. So the school, the sped isn't in both of those, right? Potentially, I don't know.
Yeah, and don't forget the 2.7 million in revolving accounts.
No,
Yeah,
the
that's right.
revolving accounts is where they have the money that they have. It's the revolving has some, the other ones have big flexibility, but those have to be spent on those specific things. The revolving balances, again, I'm guessing, even though they said ARPA and revolving, I guess most of that money came out of revolving.
Well, the other thing, Doug, what Christine said Tuesday was that they were going to look at the revolving accounts where they could transfer the cost of, say, custodians from the regular school budget into the particular revolving account where custodians have to stay late. So there are costs that they can transfer between regular and revolving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I know Steve, I think, talked to them about that too. I mean, some better accounting to better show the use for the money is just as valuable, right, at the end, I think, for us. So anyway, Ed, they held the 1.9 and encumbered most of the 1.9, and we were all pretty horrified by that. And
Well, it's a direct rejection of free cash, you're able to close it out, you get more free cash, so.
Right.
Yep, so, anyway, that was what they held at the end of 22.
So Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. So if I'm hearing like three different things that they're holding. 985,000 in circuit breaker, 1.9 million of encumbrance for materials and supplies and so forth, and $2.7 million of revolving accounts. So if those are three separate things, that's like close to $6 million they're sitting on.
I don't think that's the case.
Those are separate. Yeah, those are.
Kevin?
correct, yeah.
So
Yes,
Kevin,
yeah, those are.
they're
Those
all
are correct.
separate.
Those are separate.
Yes.
Yeah, 2.7 plus 2 plus $1 million. $5.7 million is sitting on.
Right, but they can't give the 2.7 back. or they can't give a lot of it back.
No, I mean, there's, for example, the food they can't do. But if you saw my spreadsheet, up until 2019, their average revolving account total balance was less than $300,000. It's only in the last 3 years it jumped to 2.7 million.
Well, that's from all the but remember also their food stuff has all changed dramatically over this time, and Wakefield Academy had changed. It's fine, Dan. I mean, I think this is. I mean, what do you want them to do? You want them to give you can't get the sped money back. What do you want back from them? Is I guess the question.
I guess what I already mentioned, that they can move some money from their regular account to some of these revolving accounts. They can return the circuit breaker money to the town if they do so choose. And they can use the $1.9 million that they have in encumbrances to reduce the 24 budget.
Did it assume that they've already used the 1.9 within the 24 budget?
Yeah.
Within
Yeah,
23.
well, the 23 budget,
Sorry, the 23 budget, yes.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
Because they encumbered that in 22, Dan, they're using it now.
right. So now they're going to have an additional encumbrance of, I don't know, $1.5 million, $2.2 million that'll be carried over from 23 to 24 because the 23 budget was based on no encumbrance and no source of funds from 22. It's just moving forward another year with adjustments, right?
Right, they should have another 1.9 to return to the town.
That's
thought if
that's
they-
correct.
Makes sense.
I thought if they've encumbered it, it would be accounted for within the 23 budget, meaning that that money would be shown and used within that budget, no?
No, it was 22 money that they did not spend.
To be used in 23.
So now, but remember, 23 is 5% higher than 22. So, and if the 23 budget is accurate, which it clearly was not, because if you look at the 23 budget, they did not include a source of funds of 1.9 million from 22. So now they have not $47 million available in 23, they have $49 million available in 23. So if they spend the 49, fine, but if they only spend the 47 that they told us they were going to spend, now they got 1.9 that's getting carried over into 24.
Right, I don't see it that way. I completely understand what you said. I assume the carryover is embedded in the budget to be spent, not to be carried over year. It was encumbered for a fee, so it lowered something else in the 23 budget. I can't tell you where, but they said we spent, they prepaid school sped, and so that should be in. It was prepaid, so that's in good shape. And this coming year, you saw they're reducing that by like 350, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Maybe
So Jim, when you say that
tell us what they spent it on?
Yeah,
Shouldn't
so
they
if you
tell us?
if you say they prepaid it, right? They prepaid a 23 bill with 22 money, right? That's what you're saying?
I'm saying the way it was described is the prepaying of sped costs.
For 23 or 22?
I thought for 23, and
I
maybe
think for 23, because they got a lot of this money, they got a lot of it granted to them at the end of 22, and they couldn't
Exactly.
spend it.
Exactly. So now their
currency of the
bill,
United States is the
their
United
bill
States
for
dollar.
sped for 23 now got covered by $2 million from 22 money. So now the 23 sped budget has already received 1.9 million, which means they don't have to spend what they budgeted for 23 on sped because they used some 22 money. So now they're going to have additional monies left over that's going to be rolled over into 24 because they're not spending what they said they were going to spend in 22. It's like a reserve.
All right, so if that's the case, then we should see that at the close of year, correct? We would see that again, that they're going to have money left over to return or to justify encumbering, right?
Right. Yeah, Kevin will see it.
Yeah, and the school board sees it. We should be able to see it as well. Just one point on the revolving account, so that, as you said, Dan, you know, it went substantially increased. So didn't pre-K just start not too long ago? Wasn't that a part of a big budget increase, Steve? Do you recall?
That was the early childhood center. That was a few years ago, probably
No, that was
5.
something else. That was something else. Yeah, okay. So like the academy in the pre-K got very efficient or something, you know, the money went up quite a bit, you know, which is great. And as you all said, and as Steve, I think, worked with them on, accounting for those expenses to show against that revolving account is very appropriate, which will help bring down the, you know, the total ask again. So that's a good thing. So anyway, I don't know what else to say. I think they I don't know, Dan, when was the last time they presented a budget number and changed it? I think it's been a few years.
Oh, they change it every year.
Let me rephrase the point. Isn't this the first year in a long time they changed it down?
Down?
The ask is going down by $500,000. I find that productive.
But, well, if I'm negotiating anything, I always go start the high point. Police unions, fire unions, they're going to ask for 6%. And, oh, okay, we'll give you 5 if you want to. Oh, good. Feels like a win. I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Yeah, but that's, Dan, the other thing is look, a lot of their budget, fine, there's the funds that you're worried about them sort of sitting on. But the notion, like, you know, you've been living with this like talk of 3 and 4% forever. It doesn't matter if they've negotiated a rate in the union level, and this goes to Steve's groups as well. You look at it and they're much more heavy on personnel. They can't walk in. Their budget is up 5% based on what they've given away in the past. And I don't disagree that that's a problem, but you can't, you know, you can't keep coming after them for like not hitting your 4% goal unless you want them to cut everything other than personnel spend.
I'm only looking at our total revenue.
I know.
And our revenue was restricted by Prop 2.5, state aid, local receipts. That's it. So we can't spend what we don't have. We have to have a balanced budget. So that's why I'm using the 4%, is because of Prop 2.5 and our new growth. Now, I'd love to get 5% on our revenue, but we don't. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but I did the revolving accounts, just so we have an idea of what we've been talking about. So from 2020 down to 2016, the sum total of all the revolving accounts has been less than 300,000. On the food services, and Doug is right. I mean, the food services we can't touch, but they went from 408 up to 729. Okay, fine. But look at the pre-K. Pre-K, 752, 706, 247. It used to be hovering around 0, give or take a few bucks. Academy used to be hovering around 0, except for a few bucks. Now it's expected to be 878,000. So, I mean, this is where I'm coming from. And athletics is another one. That's 160. That's not that big a deal. But what they're looking at for the 500,000 is the 878 for the Wakefield Academy. So they'll knock that down to say 378, and then now it's more in line with, you know, I guess it's not in line with the old pass, but it's lower. So that's what they're doing with the revolving accounts. The total just, I mean, it jumps out at you. What happened in 2021? I shouldn't say it, but who became the superintendent and when?
Yeah, but also what happened in 2021? You know, maybe that's
yeah.
the function of the superintendent, but not so much what else happened in 2021.
Yeah, pandemic, of course, the pandemic. Yeah, I get that. We got a lot of money.
All right, so it came down, but it's not enough, Dan. That's what I think I heard from you.
That is my opinion. I
Yeah,
obviously.
no, that's what I said. I heard from you. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Right. I assume they're taking the 500. The question is they, to be fair, let's say they took the $1 million out. This is why I don't think you need to, I think you can put in that 500 again next year as well, Dan. Then you start to have a real problem.
Is that a promise?
That's a projection, I think.
I'll promise anything for him. By the way, I can promise that, yeah. That the money is that it's 500 grand less, then you will be able to like squash that, you know, by the extra 500. The problem is you're just delaying it. So, you know, at some point you've either got to make it up revenue wise or cut the expenses.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah, and I think, you know, you said it earlier, Dan, on the, you know, sort of the 3 buckets of money, and I get on my soapbox a little bit with them about, you know, the money we get from the state, the requirements we get from the state, the mandates we get from the state. You know, they don't line up, they don't add up. We want to support good paying jobs. We want to support solid union increasing wages. The people that get elected, you know, do their jobs to the best of their ability. But however, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't roll over to be used in those areas where it needs to be used. You know, we appreciate teachers and firefighters and police, but we don't get funded properly at the state level. And, you know, you have 2.5, you have new growth as you described. So, you know, in my opinion, it goes back to state, you know, the state support. But, you know, I'm not trying to fix that tonight, but that's where, you know, that's where everybody seems to wrestle and the two rocks collide, you know?
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I do have state support at 13.1 million, and it's a nice increase over 12 million 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's $800,000. So that's a real nice help. But you know, it's like 11%, no, I'm not sure what percentage increase is, but it's a significant increase.
If I could quote you, I'd aim a lot higher in that area. Stefan.
There's a lot that Dan mentioned that I'd agree with. You know, I think the encumbrances that the school made from 22 to 23, you would assume that those same expenses are going to be required each year moving forward. So you could just sort of assume, I think it may be a safe assumption, maybe not to the magnitude that we saw that particular year, but there will still be some encumbrances moving forward. One thing I did want to mention to, or maybe ask a larger group is that any of these revolving accounts or excess funds, if you will, and I know we're debating this, but you know, it was just mentioned unfunded mandates or mandates from the state. Any type of requirements that are placed on the school system or that could be placed on the school system in the near future, like pre-K for all, or something like that. Would any of these funds, these excess funds, be able to sort of support those types of mandates? So we'd see the benefit of, you know, having the schools have the excess funds so that when these mandates do come down from on high, that the town does not, you know, is not adversely affected. We're sort of buffered from it strategically. And actually, just one point I just want to mention to that. I ran the DESI numbers. There's some FY21 numbers available on the DESI website. And there's a per pupil expenditure that you can pull from every community across the state of Massachusetts. And Wakefield ranks 191 out of, I think it was 399 towns. So we are spending as a town slightly below average on each pupil. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
we also have lower taxes per person than most towns.
That's true.
Don?
Yeah. So Dan, in those revolving accounts, how much of those revolving accounts actually covers salaries?
covers salaries.
Yeah, are there any salaries that are paid out of those?
Oh, probably
Yeah,
most
Wakefield
of,
Academy and all of
Yeah,
that?
Yeah.
like the academy
yeah,
one.
most of it.
That's why she presumably keeps the big pre-K number. She's got to keep their salaries essentially in reserve is what she's saying, but not sure about that.
So, but I mean, given the balances in those accounts, you know, right now, the tax levy picks up the benefits for every town employee, whether they're school system or town. But I think for grants and revolving accounts, is it something that we can require that those funds pay for the benefits of any salaried employee? You know, can we transfer some of that benefit cost to those revolving accounts and also grants that we may have?
I think that's what Christine is going to work on based on her comments Tuesday night, was looking at those items that can be transferred from the regular account to a revolving account. And she mentioned custodians as one example, but there's probably more.
But the benefits are paid by the town rather for
But
those
isn't the
folks in
school
those
charged
revolving
for that,
accounts.
Jack? Steve?
I
No,
not in all cases, but that's something we should look at. For instance, if there's an increase in workers' comp, we should charge that back in all cases. An increase in Medicare, charge that back. Increase in health insurance. I don't know how many academy people get health insurance, but do we charge that back, Kevin, to them?
no, we don't.
We don't.
No,
So
I didn't mean academy. I meant the schools.
Well, it's in one budget. We break that out for you.
Yeah.
But you're right. If the people are covered by grants, maybe we should charge that back to the grants too
Absolutely.
and get it away from the tax levy.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
we-
that's what's on.
that was my point. I guess I asked that question in last year's budget. Apparently it's not a town policy to charge indirects to any of these school grants. Those are your big grants in any municipality or schools. And we should be getting an indirect charge on workers' comp, on health insurance, pension, whatnot, you know, that should all be netted back down. I mean, I'm picking up 600,000 a year in Somerville on indirects on school grants. So I just think that's a place
Yeah.
to be looking at.
Yeah, I agree.
Dan?
Yeah, so one last thing, I'm going to share another spreadsheet I did. This one. So I looked at the school budget for 24 and I compared it to what they gave us in 23. And I started at the beginning and just showed that, okay, it's everybody can see that, I hope, 5.22% increase. And then I looked at page 7 of the 24 budget, and then I compared it to 23, which is this section here. And I found it really odd that for fiscal 23, they listed nobody in the teachers with 1, 2, 3, 4 years of step increases. I think that's 4 years of services, the 4 steps. Nobody across the board. Yet for 24, we have a lot of people. And it's roughly based on the average salary, somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 or 50 people just showed up. And that seemed really odd to me that that we'd have nobody, and now we got 50 people with 1 through 5 years on the step increases. And the total increase is 3.15% based on that. But I said, okay, but it seems a little high, the 3.15. If you bring in all these people with 45 or 50 people with only 1 through 5 steps, it ought to be less than 3.15%. Not a big deal. And I started looking at individual schools and in the district. So in the Doyle School, for example, in what we received last May, they had a budget for instructions of $1.562 million. What they have on their 24 budget for 23 is $1.675 million. So during fiscal year 23, between May and today, they increased the Doyle instructional budget by $112,000. And now they're asking for 1.8 million on instructions, an additional 234,000. If you compare the Doyle School instructional from what we received in May to what we received now for 24, it's a 15% increase. But if you only look at the 24 budget they gave us, it looks like a 7.3% increase. So they moved a bunch of money from someplace else during the year for 23 from $1,562,000 to $1,674,000. The grand total was an increase of 85,000. Dolbear was actually a decrease of 125. Greenwood went up 66, Walton 41, Woodville 76, Galvin 359,000, high school 176,000, 25,000 for the district. So I'm going, okay, the grand total increase is $705,000 from what they told us 23 was going to look like versus what their new 23 budget looks like. So where'd they get to $700,000? Well, I dug a little bit into it, and the circuit breaker amount was changed from 1657 to 1685. Grants offset increase of 2.7, and revolving account went up to 847,000, and it all balances out to a whopping dollar. So they have the ability to move money around as they see fit. And so not questioning that. My question is, if people look at their budget for 24, they will think that, for example, the district increases is only 2.9% when actuality is 3.1% and so forth. So grand total, it looks like 5.1%, but if you compare it to what they gave us last May, it's actually 6.5%. So if anybody knows, does the school committee actually understand the movement of this money? Do they vote on it during the year? Do they understand what's going on? And I'd love to know if anybody has answers to that, because I don't. I would assume that the school committee has to vote on movement of the money, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just turn it over to Doug and say, do whatever you want with the 47 million. Anybody know?
But I guess I'm confused. Oh,
I don't know. No.
I don't know exactly, but the 104, I think, is probably the Doyle, because that's, that's the revolving base. So if you think about that, that's your big, it's ballparking that, your 112 versus 104. And then, the grant offsets is just how they showed us the instructional cost without the grants they've gotten, or with the grants they had thought they were getting, and then they got 500,000 more in grants. Is that what we're questioning here? So they got more grants to pay for.
Right. They got an additional $573,000. And I don't question that part. That's not my question. My question is, does the school committee understand what's going on with their budget? That do they vote on saying, okay, we now have $573,000 more in grant offsets, so we're going to put some in the Doyle, some in the Dolbear, some in the Greenwood, and so forth? Do they actually consciously understand what's going on? And that's my question.
I think they tend to understand the grants that they are getting and what those grants are designed to offset. Like it seems like, when we've been on this finance and facilities subcommittee, they do talk about their grants and where they're going. So I assume they know that to the degree. Do I think that they know it like you and I would know it? No. I mean, they don't have finance people on that team really at all. And that, that's a shame, but that's the voters for you.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So yeah, we do have a role here, right, in terms of that, but that's the other problem, is we just get to do the one number.
Right.
But I'm glad that the one number, look, my feeling around this whole piece was that I felt better, and gets to what Jim was saying. Look, they came in with their ask. And by the way, their ask does have baked in some version of renegotiating with the unions, which God bless them if they actually are able to get what they were sort of suggesting there. I'm not entirely convinced that that's going to happen either, but also, look, Dan, to be fair, I'd rather we reduce the town spending by 500 grand here than the union go and get that 500 grand.
Yeah, it's a matter of priorities. That's all it is.
Yeah.
All right, is there any follow-up you'd like to hear about, Dan, from that table you just sent over, that you just showed us?
Oh, on the, yeah, I guess my question is out there in terms of, did they actually vote on it? And in terms of full disclosure, I did ask school committee members in an email, did you guys actually vote to move the monies and increase the budgets like the Dole Bear and the rest of the departments and decrease it? Or did you just allow Doug to move money as he sees fit? I have not got a response.
Perhaps you should be the moderator for the school committee debate.
All right, I know you at public participation, you raised some or most of these points. They don't reply because it's public participation, right?
Sounds
Yeah,
like they're not replying emails either.
Not yet, anyway. To be fair, I asked this morning.
There you go. So it's still baking. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's still baking. I mean, to me, in terms of, best practices and transparency, I would expect that the school committee would vote on modifications to line items within their budget. I mean, Kevin can't just move money around. Steve can't just move money around.
But the school can. They've been doing this, Dan. I've been on this committee for 25 more years, and they've been doing it for that long a period of time.
Oh, agreed. But is there
why-
any oversight? My question is the school committee oversighting what the superintendent and the finance director is doing?
Right. But let's also play make-believe. Is the town council oversighting the individual police budgets or fire budgets? No, they're not oversighting them
No,
either.
Kevin is. Kevin will tell the police department, you can't do that. Don't you, Kevin?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And I
think-
presume Christine would also.
I think the
And-
difference is that we can't move money from the police
Right.
to DPW.
Right.
Yeah. You
I mean, they've
can,
been able to move it.
but
all
within the
time.
police, you can do whatever you want to some degree.
Mm,
Because we approved the police budget as a total, right? So you could change that around. You could change.
Kevin?
The salary appropriation has to stay the same. So, but there are multiple salary lines. So if one line is in a deficit, one has a surplus, it nets out as a positive number. I'm fine with that. Expenses can move within expenses, usually within schedules like purchase of services. There's multiple lines there. Some can be over, some can be under, as long as it's a positive number at the end of the year. The same thing with materials and supplies.
And I recall, Kevin, isn't it true the school committee the school department can move it from personnel salaries to contractual supplies, anything, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they can move it, you can move it any budget line item from one to another.
Right.
Yeah, they're a bottom line budget.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that part. My point is, I think the school committee should be looking at those movements and approving them. And I don't know that they are.
I couldn't agree even more, Dan, but I don't think they are.
Although you have low turnout now for people wanting to be on the school committee. You know,
That's no excuse.
by the way,
That's
no,
no
it
excuse.
totally is an excuse. You want, you know, the school committee, Jesus, I would never run for school committee because I'm not into the amount of, like, that's a second job, essentially. Not that yours isn't right now, Dan, as well, for what you're doing for the town, but you're asking 7 people to like do that sort of thing. It's, you know.
I do know,
You're asking a
Dan,
lot.
I don't know exactly, Dan. I don't mind asking at all, and we can do that. But yeah, I do know there is a financial component at either each meeting or every other meeting, like end of month, you know, financial activity to date. And I've seen that report. I haven't seen it lately. I haven't asked for it lately either. But there is a report, you know, activity to date type report.
Yeah,
that
there's
they
the monthly updates that she does.
look at. So
I haven't gotten it in a while, but I mean,
I haven't asked for it to be given to me every month. It's not something I asked for.
Well,
We can
that's
touch
good.
base. We can touch base with Christine. I mean, there must be governance. We've asked a few questions about governance in different places, Dan. We don't mind asking more about that, or, you know, inviting them back or talking to them when they get here.
Yeah, we're they're coming 2 weeks.
Is there any more? Yeah, they're supposed to be. I'll go over that in 1 second. Is there any more discussion on this? Is there any other committee comments? So I got a text tonight, about 10 minutes before this meeting, and Doug asking if there was another meeting we could attend, they could attend, because they have negotiations scheduled, and he says it's going to be scheduled on that particular night. Exactly what's going on between then and now, I don't know. I only talked to him on a text. I told him we would talk tomorrow, but that my last scheduled meeting is the meeting that they're at in 2 weeks. That's our last scheduled meeting, I think, on the list of things, Steve, budgets and otherwise. So anyway, I was going to talk to Steve in the morning about that. He said if he had to make it, he could make it. And then later on, he said if we could do another meeting, that's really going to work well. And I'll talk to you tomorrow about it. So they're scheduled in 2 weeks to give us the final budget and review. But that's the latest news.
when are they scheduled to go before town council?
April 10th.
The Monday before us.
Oh, yeah, I mean, fine, we could take it the Thursday before. I still don't understand why they're even going before town council. That just seems ridiculous to me. I wouldn't do
think
it.
it's
if
in
I
the-
was them.
I think it's in the charter.
That they have, is it that they have
Yeah,
to
I
go
think it
before
is.
town council?
Yes, yeah.
'Cause the town
As I
council
recall-
doesn't get, they don't get to vote on it, do they?
As I
No.
recall, the charter
It's
changed
a
a whole bunch of
present,
that
just a
procedure.
presentation.
Yep.
They'd be getting a slide if I was Doug, but that's besides the point.
So, so Steve, when are we looking at town meeting, and how much
May
time
15th.
before town
Yeah.
meeting?
So
May
May
15th,
15th,
yeah.
and next month, that would have been the April 13th or 12th or something meeting, or I don't have it with me, but
So could we go as late as the 20th or 27th and still meet your timeline, Steve?
I would probably suggest, you know, the following week or something like that, not 2 weeks in this case, you know, because we've got to vote on everything too. So
Right.
we've got to see it and vote on it. So I wasn't going to be recommending 2 more weeks from that date. It just need to get more information, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I'm just thinking about the time scale, because
Right,
Steve, how much
right.
time before town meeting do you need our stuff so you can print it and all?
You know, we'll have it ready to go. It's just really plugging in numbers. I'm not all that worried about that.
Okay.
Did he give you any other dates, like the Wednesday or something like that?
that all I got was the text and asked if it could be recent.
Wow.
Could we go to, he asked if we go to the next meeting. I said, there isn't one. He said, you know, we'll talk in the morning.
I would think the Wednesday of that week would be better.
Yeah, and just figure out if who of us can make it then.
Right. Like I said, it's all
Okay.
speculation, but the
Are we
Wednesday of the
doing
same
anybody
week.
other than the schools in 2 weeks? Is the schools it?
Volk,
Yeah, the school vote, the vote, and then voting, I think was all that was on it. I don't have it in front of me. But
Correct. That's really it.
So yes, the schedule will be out here in 2 weeks, and hopefully that'll be the case, plus or minus. I'll let you know as soon as I know and check availability, so. That's all I had. Anybody? Steve? Anybody?
No, I'm good. I'll reach out to the forecast committee and we'll get something next week.
Thanks for the attendance. See you in 2
Um,
weeks.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you,
Second.
sorry. Motioned and seconded. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
But appreciate the dialogue. All right, thank you. We'll see you.
Thank you, Sully.